Alright, so another episode, I don't know which number, I'm not counting, of Techno Atlas, and I wanted to make a call out to some folks who were interested in what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to show you right now is I've got the power supply that was in that tower server out of it and on my roll around tool cart. It doesn't live inside my home office, I just drag it in here for, well, stuff like this. It's been pretty cool. I don't have an infrared thermometer to show you these guys up and running, but you'll just have to take my word for it that this Peltier cooler is absolutely doing a great job. When I fire it up, it's within minutes. I've got a cold side and a hot side. Now that silicone-based thermal device is going to let me use these fans. I just got these from a friend of mine. He had these laying around. He'd been using them for various projects, and it's great because it pulls some really good CFMs. I don't know how well. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. This camera is not autofocus on it. That's okay. It's a little bit small, but these old fans that I used out of the hard drive carriers were great for testing purposes, but long term, there was one major issue I had with them. They are noisy. So these fans are. It's not that they're any beefier. I think that it's the way it's designed is it's going to pull the same CFM, but not have the same noise or decibel level issues. Don't worry about these wires and wheels. The stuff that came out of that case. Speaking of which, I will go over to the case. You might notice that the motherboard tray laying outside the system, and the top has had some work done to it. I've worked to get that off with a pad sander. Started out, got a colleague that has a soda blaster, and this was the result of the soda blasting. It was a painful process. It was actually going to take longer than just to get a pad sander and some 80 grit. And I'll clean up the metal with some finer grit paper afterwards and use etching primer. But I really wanted to show you the back of this. That's the cavity that was left by that power supply, and that is the back the PCI cards would extend into. So a bit of an explanation. It's an old tower server that's got a front, yeah, and of course I do have this removed so that I can do a quick demo. This is going to be basically a box within a box. I'm going to use acrylic and some other things to make a nice illuminated cavity. So what I'll do is I'll cut the I'll do the old modern trick of a window in the side of this, and what that window is going to let me do is wire in some lighting, and I'll bring some temperature reading devices up to the front so that we can see what the hot and cold sides of the thermocouple temperatures are. But it's really nice and well laid out for me to do two things. One, I'm going to split the interior cavity into two halves, a top and a bottom. And I took that old crossbar off. That crossbar is going to come down here, and this bay is going to be a nice, this old drive bay is going to be a nice place of structure. We're going to have an illuminated acrylic shelf right here. I'm going to use standard sheet metal to block this off so that there's not the gaping holes, and I'll use some ducting to duct to the cold air up into this top cavity. If you'll notice, I don't know how well the light is going to shine in here, but there's a pretty good gap, and particularly this gap right here. I'm going to use 1/2 inch styrofoam or polystyrene to make a box inside of a box. So we'll have an acrylic shelf, we'll have a styrofoam box, a nice window on either side so we can see the Frosty Beverages inside, and we'll have a nice, I'm going to use the case's existing front door. It's really split out very nicely. I can have the opening to get into the beverages, and I'm not 100% certain what's going to take place here, but just trust that it will be efficient from an R value perspective. And then this bottom half that doesn't open, that's going to be that same split point that's going to carry throughout the system, and all the hardware is going to be housed in the bottom down here. I will not be using the power supply that was in the tower server. It's just too much for this. It's two 300 watt power supplies in tandem, It's just way too much horsepower to drive a thermocouple, and I'm going to have a series of fans. It's going to be, wow, the light's not favoring me here. Let's see if we can get, I'm going to have a series of fans, that's it. So I hope that clarifies what's taking place. If you don't know much about thermocouples, I could get an infrared thermometer and show you guys the values. There's no need for that. There's videos all over YouTube of people already doing that. So enjoy.